Hey folks, and welcome to Typology, the show in which we explore the mystery of the human personality through the lens of the Enneagram. My name is Anthony Skinner. I'm the producer of the show, and we have a really exciting show for you today. We have Ken Coleman on the show, okay? Now, Ken was on the show a while back, but he misidentified himself as an 8, and on the show, he sort of got a little bit of the revelation that he might not be an 8, he might be another number. Then, right after that, we had one of his co-workers, someone that he works with at the Ramsey Network, Rachel Cruz, the daughter of Dave Ramsey, and she thought we were onto something as well, that he might not be the 8 that he thought he was. Now, Ken is the #1 national best-selling author of The Proximity Principle, and of course he has the Ken Coleman Show, which he hosts as a part of the Ramsey Network, and it's a nationally syndicated radio show that airs on 51 stations across the nation. He's a trusted voice that's been featured on Forbes, Fox Business Network, and Yahoo Finance, Rachel Ray Show, on and on and on and on. Ken is an amazing guy, and he has a revelation. He goes away, does some more work, comes back, and we talk about where he misidentified himself and what number he actually is. So I think you're really going to enjoy this show. So without any further ado, here's Ken Coleman and the host of our show, Ian Cron.
Ken Coleman, welcome back to Typology.
Oh, it's always good to be with you, friend. And I can't believe I'm back this quickly. That means there's got to be something wrong with me. There must be a deep dive in store.
Yeah, well, we two things happened. One is it's like being called back to the principal's office, and secondly, we uncovered some profoundly deep pathologies in your personality.
None of this is a surprise, unfortunately.
And we just thought it'd be really good for our people to see what sick looks like.
Right. Hey, listen, if that's how I got to add value, what not to be, then that's my mantle. I'm taking it.
All right. Well, let me give people a little background into why we're having you back on the show. Why I'm so excited that you're back. The last time you were on the show, you told me and our listening audience that you were an 8, the challenger. For those people who don't know much about challengers, 2 sentences. They are combative, notoriously blunt, aggressive people who have a need to control others in the environment, to assert strength over others in the environment in order to mask feelings of weakness and vulnerability. So that's a quick thumbnail sketch of the 8. Now, during the course of our conversation, and because I knew you a bit and had spoken to others in your immediate universe, I kept thinking to myself, as has happened on many an occasion on this show, I kept thinking, I don't think so. But I try to always hold myself back and not be presumptuous and think, oh, I know so. I'm always like, huh. And so we were going through the interview. I think I mentioned, have you ever read up on 3s? And you were like, I'm not sure if you had or not.
No, I hadn't. No, I hadn't.
Okay. And then I said to you, what?
You're like, I want you to commit to me that you're going to read the chapter on 3s and really soak on it and think about it. And you gave me, I think it was like 4 or 5 days. And I want the audience to know I got a reminder text on like day 3 or 4 because he is a world-class therapist beyond everything else. That he knew that I'm administratively challenged. And so I was like, I promise, dude, I'm going to read it. And I did read it. And I very much felt like those who do work close with me, some have been on your program, they were like, I think you're a 3, Ken. And I absolutely felt like that was the case. And so it was eye-opening for me.
Right. So after you read it, you were like, whoa. So one of the things we've learned here is, and I tell this people all the time, you got to know all 9 types. I mean, you really have to read all 9 types.
Right.
If you think you know your type and just read that chapter, you may actually do confirmation bias and just automatically assume, oh yeah, sounds like me. That's, that often happens. Claire Diaz-Ortiz, as I think you and I spoke about the other day, she thought she was a 1 for 10 years because she hadn't read the other 8 numbers. in the middle of the interview, I said, Claire, I have bad news for you. You have spent 2 years in a delusional episode. I said, I need you to go home and read threes. And we're going to have a conversation that's different, but under the same sort of circumstance that we did with that episode with Claire, who was believed she was a 1, but actually was a 3. All you got to do is look at her resume, and it actually screams 3 at you when you read it.
Game changer revelation for her too, man. To
Oh
watch
my gosh.
episode 1 and then episode 2, you need to go back and check those out. Our listeners need to.
Yeah, that was extraordinary. All right, so when you read about the 3, okay, what did you think? Why did you think? Did you come up with any conclusions as to why you thought you were an 8?
It was like it was like a neon flashing light, that just was basically saying that you're driven to perform. You're driven by, one of my 5 love languages has always been affirmation. And so that affirmation desire, I've always enjoyed performing. And if I'm being completely honest, which I am, I've always wondered why I love performing so much. Why do I love live radio and television and speaking? And why did I sign up for every play, in middle school and high school? I really do love the performance side of it. But if I really dig down into it, is that I love the tension between the pressure to win the audience. Right. I've got to perform well. So there's tension to actually know your part or do a good job on the radio or do a good job on a talk or a keynote or whatever it is, or write a good book. There's a tension between the actual delivery of something good. There's tension there. And then there's the tension with, will the audience like it? And it's a sick challenge, to be honest with you. I mean, but that's what it's about. And it's this, if you're really raw about it, I think that's what when I read the chapter, I went, this speaks to who I really am, because I really enjoy the hard work and the nerves and the pressure to perform, because of the back end of that is I did something for the audience that they appreciated.
Right. So when we were on your porch the other day, we had a small conversation about this. I mean, clearly 8s can be people who love performing. Let's take, right. I have a funny feeling Robert De Niro is an 8. Yeah. So, obviously he loves performing, right? So enjoying performing is not unique to 3s, but the reason you would enjoy performing would be very different than the reason Robert De Niro would enjoy performing.
Right.
The emotional payoff for you is different than it is for him, right? Because he's a different type. So I wanted to just maybe throw a couple of things out at you. Number one, as I think I told you on the show that day, 3s and 8s often get mistyped as each other. Okay.
Why is that?
All right. So initially, lots of 3s think they're 8s. And what's interesting is that the opposite rarely happens, which is an 8 thinking they're a 3.
Interesting.
Okay? So number one, 3s and 8s both get stuff done, a lot of stuff done, and they enjoy getting a lot of stuff done. They're both energetic. They both like to be respected. Okay, respect is a theme for both. How can I say this? I would say that they both can feel like their nose get put out of joint when they're not respected. You know what I'm saying? Like
I know what you're saying. My poor kids, they're going, amen. Like respect is a core value, man.
Yeah, it's a big thing for them, right? Some of the differences are that 3s do care what people think about them.
Very much.
You're in the image conscious triad, 2s, 3s, and 4s. You want to be loved. You tend to equate at times when you're unhealthy, love and success. You draw some kind of an equivalent between the two, or attention and love, right? Whereas an 8 could care less what others think about them.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? It's like
Yep.
the 3 is always kind of looking in people's eyes and unconsciously adapting their image to win the approval and the love or admiration and respect of the person they're talking to.
Yep.
That can also go for an audience, by the way. And we spoke about this. Like when
Yep.
you go on stage, what are you great at?
Connecting with the audience, keeping their attention. I think that's probably the one skill that I have that I would be confident in, is that I can hold an audience, whether it be on radio or even if I'm interviewing you, is the ability to keep the audience's attention.
Or even if I'm interviewing you, I can keep the audience's attention.
Of course, the way you say it that way. All right, folks, let me teach for a moment. This is Exhibit A, when somebody takes your words and twists them out of context with just the slightest focus on emphasis. Now, the point is that when I'm doing an interview and it's not about me, right? But I've got to keep the audience engaged with good questions.
Right.
There's just something there to keep attention. But I want to go back a second on this 3 thing, because I hope other 3s get something out of this, because what I really got out of this when I really typed the right way is that what confused me about the 8 versus a 3 is that when I'm unhealthy, or let's just say there's a trigger of respect that you just mentioned, and it really made me think of this. That's when I can present to myself as an 8, or maybe to other people as an 8, because I can get pretty intense. But the difference between the 3 and the 8 is while I'm in this unhealthy moment, maybe I'm feeling disrespected or whatever, and I feel like I got to fight for myself or whatever. And maybe you're a bit too intense. I have the ability to read it in the moment. And as a 3, I think it's the 3 ability to kind of go, ooh, I just went way too hard there. And then you start to go, oh gosh, I was a total creep, jerk, that's not good. I ran all over him. I feel awful about it. And it feels Jekyll Hyde.
Yes. Yeah. So an 8 would not have that response.
That's right. The 8's like, whatever, get over it, wipe the tire tracks off of you. Or they don't even know.
Or they don't even know.
Right.
Right. Now we're talking about people in that average to low average range, right? We're not talking about a highly evolved 8 who would know and be, would be in tune to other people's feelings.
Right.
But you just described an affective response to you have enough self-awareness, and because you're a 3 and you are in that feeling triad along with 2s and 4s, heart triad, you pick up on the fact, I just hurt somebody, and you felt remorse.
Oh yeah,
sure. And then I'm sure there's a part of you, if you have time or inclination and you're in a good space, you'll go back and try and repair the breach. Every time.
I'm just going to tell you, I don't know if this is a 3 thing or a whacked out Coleman version of 3, but I need closure, man. I need closure when I messed up.
Tell me more about that.
I just can't function at my fullest if I know that I've hurt somebody,
right,
or I wrong somebody and I don't fix it.
Right. That's very interesting. So that makes me wonder, and you'll have to figure this out, if you're a 3 with a 2 wing.
Mm-hmm. I think I'm a 3 with a 2. When I read the wings, as you've taught me, there's so much of this stuff that kind of can come in and out. And so I'm learning to kind of hold this loosely and not be so rigid with it. But I think I'm a 2 wing because of the desire to win socially, not just be liked, but actually to have good relationships. I desire good relationships.
Yes.
I really do.
Well, you're affectionate. You're a great host in your home. These are all 2 qualities. Mm-hmm. But what you were also just saying is very 2, which is when a 2 experiences a breach in relationship, or even a perceived breach in a relationship, they have trouble sleeping. Like it really, they need closure and they need it quick. And sometimes if they're unhealthy, they'll take the blame for something they shouldn't just to get the closure. You know what I'm saying?
Do I know what you're saying? I mean, I'm going to let it all hang out here. I do this with my kids. My wife points it out to me.
Right.
that I will, they'll get upset at me just doing basic parenting. And when they get upset with me, even though her point is, you didn't do anything wrong. You were calm. You didn't exacerbate the situation. It was just, you're being a dad there and they don't like it. And all of a sudden you're trying to apologize.
Right.
That
Right.
absolutely happens. And then I'll tell you this is really sick. I genuinely need to know right now if you thought that I was insulting you, like when I said, even if I'm interviewing you, like I need to know that you know that I wasn't saying it like an Ian thing.
No, dude, you were just setting me up for a good moment.
I thought so, but I need to know. Like I was going to ask after the
No.
interview, but I thought, well, why not just have some fun with it so these people can really see how neurotic Coleman is. But no, I mean, that's really true. I think the wing 2 and the 3 combo is that we just desperately want to make people happy.
Yes. So there's that 2 thing. You want to win people's admiration and respect.
Yeah.
The 3 achiever has a need to succeed, to appear successful.
Yeah.
And to win at times, to win at all costs. And when they're not in a great space, but mostly to avoid failure at all costs.
That
Failure
rings
is
more
terrifying.
with me. That
Okay,
rings
tell me
more
about that.
Well, when you present it that way, I mean, I think it's true that anybody unhealthy can get to a really, really dark place and just do whatever it takes to win. But when you said to not fail at all costs, that's very much, that rings with me. I remember thoughts like that when I was 15 and 16. Really, really wanting to figure out what it is I was created to do and the call on my life. Because I just didn't, I used to say weird things that I laugh at it now, as a kid, I thought it was pretty cool, cause as a 3, I care how it sounds. And, so, I would say things like, I want people to know that I lived and that I made a huge impact. And I was always about, I want to make a big impact and I want to figure out what that big impact is. And, I think that comes from a fear of not making a difference.
Hey friends, I want to take a minute to thank our sponsor, HelloFresh. As America's #1 meal kit, HelloFresh delivers easy, seasonal recipes and pre-measured ingredients right to your door. And I have to say the meals are delicious. Annie and I have been able to break out of our dinner rut with HelloFresh's variety of weekly options, including easy lunches and add-ons. There's really something for everyone. Anthony, you use HelloFresh too, right?
Absolutely, Ian. You know it. We started using HelloFresh to cut out some of the stress of meal prep and planning. Now we get dinner on the table in just 30 minutes. It saves us so much time that used to be spent going to the grocery store, since they conveniently deliver right to our doorstep for easy cooking with the family. Mary Keith just texted me yesterday and said, Anthony, we got a brand new big box of HelloFresh on the doorstep.
What I really like is how flexible HelloFresh is too.
Oh yeah.
It's easy to go online and change my delivery days, food preferences, and even skip a week whenever I need to.
Yep.
HelloFresh is giving our Typology listeners a special offer. Just go to hellofresh.com/80typology and use code 80typology for $80 off across 5 boxes, including free shipping on your first box. That's hellofresh.com/80typology and use code 80typology for $80 off and free shipping.
I'm going to give you something to put on your desk. And I may have said this before. I just wrote it down over here so I remember it. And this is for all 3s, particularly if you're a person of faith. And not all of my audience identifies that way, but some doesn't. But I think this is something anyone could walk away with feeling like, okay, that has value. Saint Augustine, I think, was a 3. And Augustine was a brilliant orator, rhetorician. He was known throughout his part of the world as just as a brilliant speaker and thinker. And he went through a season where his success, which was enormous, really got to his head, right? And thought very highly of himself. Then became a Christian, okay? And he wrote a lot on the topic of ambition. And he actually doesn't say ambition is bad. He thinks that ambition properly bridled is okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What he struggled with was the source of love. Was it the crowd? Or was it his ego? Was it God? Right? That's where he saw the rub. So he has a great quote. And he says, and I say this, by the way, right before I go on stage, whether it's at Ramsey or someplace else, I always say this. I say two things. One is this prayer of St. Augustine. Lord, let it be for your sake that I am loved. Mm. Now that is a great prayer, because what he's saying is it's okay to want to be loved.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Just let it be for your sake.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
That's exactly right.
I mean, that's a
right.
powerful idea to me. Let it be for, not for my sake, just let it be for your sake that I am loved. Meaning,
absolutely right.
That means then when people come up to you and say, great job, great performance, you were awesome, you've changed my life, you can just say thank you. You don't have to have any false humility or modesty. Right. You can say thank you.
Right.
As long as in the back of your mind, you're like, God, let it be for your sake that I am loved.
That's it. It's true, man. It's about performing for one and just saying, you know what, you gave me these gifts. I need to make these gifts count for you. And that's definitely been a driving force for me. I think it was unhealthy as a kid though, because you're not mature enough to handle it. But it was always coming from, hey, I know I got one shot at this. I want to make it count. And it's key because you and I, we're in a weird situation, and there's way more notable people than us. But the fact is when you get into some of this notoriety or platform, whatever you want to call it, I have found that at first it's quite nice. That formation.
It's intoxicating.
It is. It's quite nice. However, it wears off, I think. And I think that once it gets to the point where you've had it enough, then it better be about the work itself. You better love what you're doing. And you're doing it for the one who created you. I agree with that prayer. That's such a good thing. That's good.
I was on somebody's podcast that's a speaking guru. And he said, what's the one hint you should give to people out there who are aspiring public speakers? And I said, sincerely love your audience.
That's it.
Sincerely love your audience. It's not about, technique is important, having good content is important, but nothing is more important than your audience sensing when you walk out on stage that they are not a money ticket, that it's not about you winning their applause, but that you genuinely want the best for them and that you're there to help them.
That's really
arrive
good.
At that point.
That's really good. Hey, let me add something to that, because Ian just dropped gold on you all. Let me just add one little thing to that. That's why when I have people call my show or young aspiring speakers come to me and go, hey, how do I figure out what I want to speak about? So I always drive them to what you just said, which is, who are the people you most want to speak to help? Because you better have a driving mission for the audience. The message will come, but you better know who you want to help.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's pop back. You're an achiever performer. You thought you were a challenger. Let me just also give you some other differences. We've already laid out some why that misidentification may have happened. Did you have an 8 parent?
I think my dad has some 8 tendencies, but I'm not willing to say that he's a full-blown 8.
Okay. The reason I ask is sometimes a 3 who grows up around an 8, because you're all what we call 3, 7s, and 8s are all aggressive or assertive numbers, we call them.
Yeah.
If a 3 grows up with an 8, it's not hard for them to pick up some of the aggression of the 8. You know what I mean? Like another 5%, right?
Well, let me ask you this though. I'm glad you brought this up.
Okay.
So, because I thought about this before our conversation today, I was going to ask you how much of this is wiring versus environmental. Because I will say this, my dad was a hard driver. I don't think he's a true 8, but I think that let's put it this way, I was not a good student. Okay, just never was a good student. I did well on aptitude tests, and so it frustrated my dad to no end, who was a National Honor Society student. Went to University of Michigan on an engineering degree. I mean, the guy's brilliant, very smart, straight A's. And I was not that kid. I only did well in classes that I was interested in, which was history and Bible. Everything else was like, really? And I couldn't pay attention to it. And I was a really bad student, a C and D kid. And it caused a lot of tension. And he would do and say some things that we've since gotten healthy, and it's all good now. But he was trying to wake me up and say, you're going to be pumping gas if you don't get good grades. So I got to tell you, when I heard stuff like that, I was like, I'll show you. And it was a giant chip on my shoulder.
Right.
And I'm not so sure, Ian, that chip is completely gone. I think I can default and put it up there when I need it. And then I try to be aware of it enough to take it off most of the time. So I say all that to ask you, how much of this is environmental? Maybe my dad wasn't an 8, but that confrontation and that the way I was kind of dealt with, it turned me into is it possible it turned me into a bit of a performer?
Well, yes. But let's answer yes to, you just asked 2 questions there. One was about your relationship with your dad. Could that have influenced your becoming a performer? The other one was, is it hardwiring or?
Right.
So let's answer the first one. I say, first of all, that personality, the nuts and bolts of a human personality are probably in place around the age of 5 or 6. Okay. So, it's wet cement, but all the basics are in place.
Okay.
You are born with a temperament or disposition that contain what we call fixed traits. Okay. So this, you have children, that some kids just come out anxious. Some just come out depressives. Some just come out like sunny side up, like my son Aiden, like where everything is just joy. I mean, every kid has a certain amount of hardwiring with fixed traits. My son could not ever change that fundamental optimism at his core about life. He couldn't. That's a fixed trait. Now, he could, let's say, now he's an extrovert, right? So he's never not going to be an extrovert, but he can learn to dial it back, right? In other words, to steward that part of his hardwiring. Right. So it's not like I can't do anything about it. It's like, actually you can dial that back. It's just going to burn calories. It's going to cost you energy to do it. And you won't be able to do it forever. Right. And then we have what are called free traits in our personality, which are much more open to being actually changed. Okay. Now, your personality then is partly hardwiring. Then you have cultural, familial, peers, trauma, parents in particular, as I talk about the family system, and other life experiences that also shape personality, right? So the answer when people ever ask me, is it nature nurture, is this, I say yes. And when you get older, it's also what I call unconscious choice. You're unconsciously choosing a personality, regardless of whether it's healthy or not. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm just unconsciously choosing my wild, crazy behavior. But so in terms of self-understanding, self-perception, when you learned that you were a 3, did it change the way that you understood yourself in this short period of time as a parent, as a husband, in the work that you do? Like what did it do for you?
Yeah, well, I think it really helped me see the driving force behind the good and the bad
Right.
of the behaviors. That's what I love about Enneagram is the contrast between healthy and unhealthy, and I love that. I think I tend to. I'm an optimistic person. I'm a guy that's full of belief. I always believe there's a chance. I just do. I'm that guy that I always think there's a chance for something good to happen. But in this particular situation, I went introspective on the stuff that needed to get better.
Right.
Because, candidly, I'm 46. I hope that I'm halfway through. I hope I got 46 more. I'd like several more than that. But, I'm raising kids. I've got a ninth grader. I've got a seventh grader and a sixth grader. And so I realize how quick this is all happening. And I'm really, really conscious of the fact that I can be better as a husband. I can be better as a dad. And that's going to help them. And to the extent that it helps them in whatever small way it is, it's really a burden that I have. Mm-hmm. And so I went in and I was like, oh, okay, this explains why I interact with my wife the way I do. It explains why she says one thing and I hear another. So I think it's really incredible for marital conversation and communication. That's the hardest part about marriage is communication. By the way, I told her the other night, I go, I love our kids, but I'm really starting to think that being an empty nester is going to really be fun. There's just not as much conflict. Like at any given time, you were in our house, you saw it. There's 3 kids, 2 dogs. At any given, that's all orbiting at the same time. And at any given time, if I'm not healthy and she says something or the kid does something and I turn it in towards my performance, and am I being loved and accepted as, do you think I'm being a good dad or a good husband? Or did you appreciate the fact that I went and used the drill to do this stupid little menial task? And if you didn't say, honey, that was amazing. How did you do that? I started to see things about myself. I was like, oh gosh, that's unhealthy. And I'm looking for, affirmation in places that quite frankly, I don't need it. I just think that's what I walked away with.
So it's interesting about 8s and 3s. Another thing that I asked you if your dad was an 8, because sometimes that can make a 3 wonder if they're an 8. Another reason is because they have a role model who's an 8. And this often happens. Remember, 3s adapt, right? So they do one of their defense mechanisms is called identification. So if they have a role model or a hero, they or a corporation, right? Let's say they begin to identify not only with their masks, right? That sort of a thing, but I think they also say, I'm trying to make my mask into the image of a role model, right? So it could be perceived as a silly question, but do you think it's possible in your life that there's a role model who is a strong 8, who as a 3 you felt like, I need to appear more like that person, or I want to appear more like that person, therefore I'm going to, self-identify maybe more as an 8?
Yeah. Well, that's a really interesting question. I don't know. I know that Dave Ramsey is somebody that I look up to, and he's an 8. But I'm going to answer this the only way I know how. I don't know if these guys are 8s, but I know that I looked up to people like John Maxwell and worked for John Maxwell and Dave Ramsey, and these guys had at times you would think they were an 8. I don't know if John's an 8. I think he's probably a 3. But the point is that some of the things about the 8, the decisiveness, the strong, fight for your ideals, it's got to be your way. I certainly am enamored by that in certain business people and other people that I've worked for. So I do see what you're saying, that you can model that because you think, well, this is, if you're going to be an achiever, you're going to have to be this way. Mm-hmm. And I can see that. And it's really interesting that you just said that, because if my mom was here right now, she'd be laughing so hard because she has always said that I've been a mimic.
Mm. Yes.
As a little guy, she would, I'm talking little. She was like, you were doing impressions for the whole family when you were 7 and 8, people that were on TV. And she goes, you would walk in a room. This is all stuff I hadn't even thought about until you just said that. But
Wow.
my mom, she's coming back to me right now. She's going, you were always the kid. You would walk in the room and she would go, I would be holding your hand. And she goes, I would look down and she said, you would be scanning the entire room.
Yes.
And just incredibly observant.
Wow.
And I do have a mimic personality. Because my cousin said to me once, he lives in Michigan. I'm born and raised in the South. And he said, every time you come up here, you start speaking like a Michigander. And I'm not doing that on purpose.
Right.
No.
Like he says it to me and I'm like, oh, come on. You got to be kidding me. He's like, no, I'm telling you, every time you do it. So I do think what you're saying is absolutely true.
Yes. So again, the identification thing we normally think of with threes as they identify with whatever mask they're wearing in the moment. They actually think they are that person. But I also believe that eights will find people in their lives they really admire, oftentimes, and adapt their personality in a different way to either win that person's approval, to be like that person, even though, this is the hard part, they're abandoning their true selves to become like that person.
I think that's spot on. That is hitting me right between the eyes. Certainly a much younger Ken.
Yeah.
But it's still there. I would tell you that I think my perspective on that is to win their approval, not to be more like them. You said it was one or the other. I think it's clearly both. But I think for me, it's heavily weighted towards I turn into a chameleon.
Right.
Just for the, hey, we're so much alike, or whatever unhealthy thing that is.
Hey, Anthony.
Yeah,
You know I've been working on my latest book, right?
I do.
Well, part of my process is researching topics related to my content.
Okay.
But as you can imagine, there are tons of resources out there. So let me tell you about one of my ultimate life hacks.
Please tell us.
It's called Blinkist. If you haven't heard of it, Blinkist takes the best need-to-know information from thousands of nonfiction books and condenses them down into just 15 minutes that you can read or listen to. I like Blinkist because it quickly gives me the main points of a book, which helps me evaluate which books I want to make time to read in full later and which ones to prioritize now for the projects I'm working on. And since Blinkist works on my phone, my tablet, or in a web browser, I use it anywhere, whether I'm traveling, making breakfast, working out, you name it. I've listened to and highly recommend Daniel Nettles' book Personality and Michelle Obama's book Becoming. I loved both of them. You can even read or listen to the key takeaways from The Road Back to You by yours truly.
I like that.
With Blinkist, you get unlimited access to read or listen to a massive library of condensed nonfiction books. All the books you want and all for one low price. Now check this out. Right now, for a limited time, Blinkist has a special offer just for our typology audience. Go to Blinkist.com/typology, try it free for 7 days, and save 25% off your new subscription. That's Blinkist, spelled Blinkist, Blinkist.com/typology, that's TYPOLOGY, to start your free 7-day trial. And you'll also save 25% off, but only when you sign up at Blinkist.com/typology.
Part of then the journey of the three is to move from the passion of self-deceit, meaning believing you are the adapted image that you're portraying to win the crowd.
Yep.
To abandon that in order to realize authentic selfhood. Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't walk into a room, be able to scan the room, figure out what's going on, get on stage and connect. That's not what I'm saying.
No,
what I'm saying is when you do that with self-knowledge, self-awareness, and saying, this is my job. I'm a speaker. I get up here. My job is not to go, I'm going to be authentic. You are, because you're wired this way and you have a mission in this direction, you can do that and not abandon your authentic self to do it.
That's right.
And when you turn it on stage sometimes, and I've had to do it, you've had to do it, to remember, this is not who I really am. In other words, let me give you an example. There's a wonderful documentary. Anthony, what's the name of it again? About the famous manager. Remember, you had Alice Cooper, you had Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix. It's an amazing documentary. Ken, if you haven't seen this, we're going to get you the title. It's amazing.
No, I've got to watch it.
Probably the most successful music manager, most wild life story ever, really. It's crazy.
Yeah. I'm sure.
Anyway, he has managed Alice Cooper since the days when Alice Cooper couldn't get a job playing music at a McDonald's,
Wow.
like in a toy, in the Playland section. And he said that he once asked Alice Cooper, and for those of you who are too young to remember, famous rock star.
Yes.
He once asked him, how do you, in the midst of, and he was a global phenomenon, how do you make it? Like, how do you survive this? Because here's how I do it. When I go out on stage or into places where I know I'm going to be interacting with people as Alice Cooper, right? Air quotes. Well, I go in my closet and I get my Alice suit on. And I go out and I do my Alice thing. But when I come home, I always take it off and put it back in the closet.
Right.
Because if I go through life being Alice for everybody, then I'm nobody. I'm just whoever that person wants me to be. It's called Supermensch, The Legend of Shep Gordon is the name of that movie.
Love it.
Supermensch, The Legend of Shep Gordon. Oh gosh, what a great documentary.
Well,
and I think
really
that's
true.
But I think that's what a 3 has to remember more than any other type.
Yeah, and kids have been great for me on that because, that event we were together a couple months ago, and I did a talk and it was well received and I felt all the things and felt like it went well. And my oldest son, Ty, was in the room and, and afterwards he was just like, hey man, you going to take me and my buddies to a movie this weekend? You know what I mean? And it's like, it's great because it's like, you know what I mean? It's
I know what you mean.
You just, it's really good for you is my point. Cause you realize I'm dad to him.
Yep.
Right.
And he said some nice things later, later he's like, Dad, you were funny today.
Right.
Like that's all I got. But that's good. That's good.
As long as you can separate your persona from your authentic self. And let's face it, I think both you and I aspire to be authentic with our audiences. Yeah. But it's impossible to be completely authentic with our audiences. In other words, there is, by nature, the moment you take a stage, a persona involved. It's actually a word that comes from the theatrical world of the Greeks, meaning, mask, when they wore masks in performances. There's always a persona involved, right? But we want to manage that, keep it on, you want to keep that on a leash.
So let me ask you though. I don't disagree with you, but you've seen me speak. We've spoken together. Yes. You've seen me speak at least enough, and we've definitely hung out together where no one else is around. It's just us, two dudes hanging. I don't know that there's a big difference between me on stage than there is in person.
Of course there is.
Energy?
Well,
that's about it. Like my voice doesn't change. I don't have a different voice.
No. It's nothing like that. But you, as I do.
Unless you're saying in that moment, I am projecting like, hey, I've got a thought that I believe in and you need to hear it. And so it's more of a.
Yeah. And
is that what you mean?
Yeah. You're also, let's face it, it's more polished. It's more winsome.
I see what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying? And there's the Ken Coleman thing. So let me just put it to you this way. And this was so helpful to me. And this is a good question for 3s, but also for a 4 who has a very strong 3-link. I have to periodically ask myself, am I being Ian Cron right now? Or am I being Ian Cron right now?
I love the quote fingers.
So, you know what I'm saying, right?
I do. But in all honesty, on my radio show, I mean, Will does my publicity. He's sitting right here.
Will's right there waiting to lose his job.
No, Will's fine. Am I that much different on the radio than I am in person?
I don't think so.
Yeah. So I'm not disagreeing with you. I just am trying to understand what you mean by like, because I don't go, all right, I'm about ready to be Ken Coleman when I go in the studio. I don't do that.
Well, I think everybody does it, Ken.
All right.
Everybody has a Anthony Skinner or an Ian Cron or a Ken Coleman,
right?
And they have their true selves. Everybody has a false self. Everybody has a true self.
See, that's what I'm struggling with, is because I'm reading what you're saying and I'm going, does that mean I'm less authentic in those moments?
For threes, no, not necessarily. What threes have to be careful of more than any other type is the issue of authenticity.
Right.
Because
I agree.
Yes, because of your desire to succeed and to appear successful and to win admiration, you will sometimes abandon your true self in order to become someone else that the crowd will love more, because you don't believe, in your unhealthiest place, that you can be loved for who you are. You have to become whoever they want you to become in order to be loved or to experience love. Which of course is a fool's errand, because there is never enough of audiences to convince with that, right?
Yeah.
And the very fact that you have to practice it lets you know that there are two, there's a false self and a true self. That's why it's so important to you were talking about earlier, to be transformed more by the gaze of God than the gaze of your admirers or your audience, right?
That's right.
And the reason that's an issue is because we have a true self and a false self.
That's right.
So because there is a quote, Ken Coleman, that's the tension, and that's why you have to keep practicing to move toward authenticity.
That's right. No, I get it. I see it more in social settings. If I'm hanging out with some influencers that I really admire, like I could see the first time I met Ian and I would kind of more matriculate his way. I see it there. What I was struggling with is, and in all honesty, is just, I really don't turn on, like this entirely different guy when I'm on the air or on the stage. Right.
So this gets us to the issue of subtypes. I think you are a particular version of the three. So there is the three of all threes, right? That you always hear described is called the social three. There are two other threes. And there's one called a self-preservation three that I would encourage you to do a little research on. And what I can do is actually I'm going to send you a photo of 2 pages from a book on self-preservation threes. And then you tell me if it sounds a little bit more like your space of three, okay? Because I'm not convinced you're a social three, which is the quintessential three. Like I can say this because they've all been on my show. Mike Hyatt is a quintessential three. He's a social three, okay? Another social three, Don Miller, is a social three, okay? I don't think you're a social three. I think my hunch is, or what I would encourage you to do, and I don't know this, is to look at the self-preservation three. And I will just send you a 2-page thing on self-preservation.
What's the quick difference? Because people want to know. You can't just dangle that out there.
Okay. Well, the self-preservation three is actually what's called the counter type. So you actually often don't look like a three. The reason is because, I don't know how to say this as quickly as possible, but this is the three that you have the hardest time convincing there are three. In part because this three really wants to be good. This is a person who wants to be good. This is a person who wants to be virtuous, a person of integrity, a person that is a model citizen, husband, father, worker, colleague. Do you see where I'm going? In other words, to them, that's success, okay? But there is a secret kind of vanity about being perceived as that model person. And so it's hard for them to accept that there are three, because that would involve deceit and vanity. So this particular form of three has vanity around not being vain.
Yes, the sweet irony.
Yes. So that takes a lot to think about. And so what happens is oftentimes they think they're ones or they think they're sixes.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I absolutely believe I'm a 3. I didn't mean to trip us up on that. I will tell you that authenticity to me is, I think I have vanity around authenticity.
Okay, that's okay. So,
I mean, because when you said it, I was like, I get turning the juice up a little bit, and I get that. You know, if I'm sitting talking to you, we're having a cigar. I mean, obviously, I'm not going to talk exactly the way I do on my show. But the point is that I feel like I'm every bit me when I'm hosting my show. Every bit. That's what I was struggling with.
Hey everybody, one of the lessons I've learned over the years is that not everybody benefits from a traditional 50-minute counseling session. And this is why some people can go to couples therapy or personal counseling for a long time and never really get anywhere. This is why I'm such a believer of intensive counseling and my friends at Restoring the Soul in Colorado, created by my longtime friend Michael Cusick to help couples or individuals experience deep change in half-day blocks over 1 or 2 weeks. Now listen, if you can't wait months or years to get to the bottom of an issue or to experience breakthrough, you need to get in touch with my friend Michael and his extraordinary team of counselors at Restoring the Soul. If you're looking to get out of the rut you're in, but can't wait months or years, call Restoring the Soul today for a free consultation with Michael's staff. Call 303-932-9777 and learn how their intensive counseling process can help you. As a special bonus, just for Typology listeners, make sure to visit www.restoringthesoul.com/typology to download their PDF called 5 Ways Unaddressed Trauma May Be Derailing Your Relationships.
Self-preservation 3, research it. I think the vanity, even the willingness to say I have vanity around my authenticity is a way that kind of makes me go, that's very much more like a self-preservation 3.
Yeah.
To say that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So a couple of things, and then we got to wrap up. First of all, 3s are beautiful. They're wonderful human beings. The planet would not be here without 3s doing what it's doing. When you're at your best and you're using your superpowers in service to what God, higher power, divine, whatever my listeners could choose to call this higher person being in their lives, you radiate glory in a way that is reminds people of the glory of God in the world. When you're using it in your superpowers in service to your own ego's agenda of wanting to be loved, wanting to be seen, wanting to be admired, want to be known as a success, want to, blah, blah, you're living with air quotes around your name. And, so for all 3s, the journey is to learn to self-observe and realize when you're got air quotes around your name and you need to return to who you truly are in the moment.
Yeah, that's right.
And that takes a lifetime to say, okay, no more chameleon games. I'm going to try and be who I am consistently, regardless of my context, where I am. I'm always going to be the same person. And everybody should strive to be that. It just takes 3s a little bit more effort.
Yeah, it's true. Because we're constantly dealing with our own scoreboard. Yes.
So I want to just highlight a couple of things. One is because it's important for people to know. You've got this great show, the Ken Coleman show, and the passion that you have sort of around getting people connected to their true self, and then finding a career that aligns with who they are, with their mission. Am I articulating this well?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm deeply, deeply passionate to help as many people as possible realize where they're supposed to contribute. I just believe that we were created to contribute. And whether you're a person of faith or not, I doubt that there's anybody listening today or watching that has not laid awake at night at some point in their life and said, why am I here? Or what should I do with my life? And the high level answer is contribute. And I focus on the work aspect. It's not workaholism. It's just there is a huge portion of your life you will spend working. And I believe that you should be able to use what you do best, your talent, to do work you love. That's what I define as passion, to produce results that matter deeply to you. That's mission. And so simply put, where talent, passion, and mission, your talent, passion, and mission intersect, that's that contribution zone. I call it the sweet spot. That's not my metaphor. That's a metaphor that anybody who's ever watched any kind of sport understands that. And so we're trying to help people get clear on those three indicators, if you will: talent, passion, and mission, and then see where in the marketplace can you contribute? Because there's multiple ways to do that. It's not just one job, not just one career that you have to stress out about. So that's the core of what we do on the show.
Don't you have something specific right now that's available?
Oh yeah, well, we've got a Get Hired course. We created it because we had somewhere between 38 to 40 million people unemployed, 3-4 months ago. Now we're somewhere in that 20 million, and so we created a very simple digital course. Love to let people know about it. It's $20 at kencoleman.com. It's called Get Hired. So this will work either if you're trying to figure out that dream job and get there, or if you just need something right now to stabilize. And that's a lot of people right now. They know what the dream is, and they've had to press pause, or more importantly, COVID pressed the pause button for them. And so it's a simple course. I teach it, and it's 11-part video series that'll help you have the edge on getting hired right now, because it's a tough market to get hired in.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So I love the idea that, and I think we've spoken about this idea before, that one of the things that I love that you do is help people move from being consumers to contributors.
Yes.
We live in a culture that says, and advertising does it to us, schools teach it to us, everything else. Your job is to be a consumer, which, if you think about it, is an insulting word.
Yes.
That people refer to other people as consumers.
Right.
Instead of human beings, right?
That's right.
But how do we move from being people who are concerned about consumption versus contribution? And I love about the fact that you're doing it. So that's the Ken Coleman Show. It's on Sirius, YouTube channel, the Ken Coleman podcast. So, and of course now the Get Hired course, which people can find on kencoleman.com. And then I just want to say the takeaway for me from this conversation is, finding your Enneagram type is not as easy a journey or as clear-cut a journey as everybody thinks it should be. Like, it's not like other personality typologies that spit out data, and, it's a journey to self-understanding. And we are so complex that if people think it's not going to take a little bit of effort, they're crazy.
Well, the thing I was going to ask you is, so now that I know I'm in that 3 space, and I'm going to do some more reading on that self-preservation angle of the 3. I mean, what do we do? What do I do next? How do I step forward in every aspect of my life with this information that I have?
Well, I would say 2 things. Here's one thing I would tell you, because I'm actually very excited about it. We just finished filming a course. And it's called True You, a deeper exploration into your Enneagram type. And actually, you're the perfect candidate for it, because now you know your number. And then people ask the question, well, now that I know my number, does that just make me interesting at cocktail parties, or able to talk to my friends? And then, you and Rachel Cruz can laugh at each other.
Oh, yeah, it's so fun.
Right? That's not really what the Enneagram is for, although that's fun. It is meant for deep spiritual transformational work. So True You, a deeper exploration into your Enneagram type, is a course that I designed, and here's what makes it unique. Most courses go through all 9 types and give brief descriptions of each. So maybe 30 minutes, if you're lucky, right, on each type. And so you don't get a deep dive into any single one type, you get a flyby. In this training, there are 9 different courses, one for each type. So you could go right now, or when actually the wait list just opened today, you could go there right now and say, I want to take this course, and I want to get the 3, module, or whatever we call it, and I want to get, Dave Ramsey's, I want to learn about eights, or I want to learn about ones. So I'm going to buy those 3 modules, and you're going to get 90 minutes on your type. And I'm going to cover things like I'm going to cover subtypes, instincts, virtues, passions, basic fears and desires. Just a whole host of stuff that would take you to the next layer of knowledge that you need to accelerate your journey toward embodying the highest expression of yourself. The course comes out early October. The wait list just went live today, which is September 9th. So who knows I'm not sure when this is dropping, Anthony, but course may be live right now as we speak. But I'm so excited about it because I'm able to teach each number for 90 minutes at least.
Right.
And so people get a ton of attention, and they can just cherry pick from the 9 numbers which ones they want to learn about. So
I love that. I think it's great. I think every married couple should do it just to be able to learn about their, I just think it'd be huge.
If someone had done this as a premarital with me and my wife, if someone had said to me, here's the 3 and the 9, courses from Ian's Training True You, it would have saved us a lot of heartache.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
And misunderstanding.
I'm sure. I got an idea for your podcast. You need to get couples on that are the same number.
Is Stacy a 3?
Yeah.
That's right.
But I wasn't doing it for the cheap therapy. I just was saying I think it's a novel idea because you and I were talking, we will keep their names private because people know them. But we were talking about some friends. One is an 8 and one is a 1. And you were like, oh boy. And I thought, well, that's interesting. But then what happens when the spouses are the same number? That's a fascinating deal.
Yeah. Well, I will just say one thing and then we'll sign off. One of the things they have to do, 2 numbers for you and Stacy, is you have to make sure that you don't mutually reinforce the worst side of the 3 in each of yourselves. So in other words, that you get into a feedback loop, right? Where you're encouraging to do the not great stuff with the 3 with each other. Does that make sense?
Of course.
Like we've all heard about the power couple who are 2 3s.
Right.
And that they're just encouraging one another to be on the low side of 3.
Right.
Versus on the high side of 3.
That's right. That's really well said.
So what I would say is, this course, I will gift you the 3 course. The 2 of you should sit down and watch it. And
you're very nice. I see. There it is. He's doing it again, folks. I know. I wasn't going for that. I wasn't going for it. Now I'm like, I'm gonna lose all kinds of sleep over this. I'm kidding. No, that's really great. But I do listen. Ian's become a friend, and I know I'm a guest on his show, and they can always edit this out. But I think every married couple who wants to get serious about commitment and really giving marriage a shot to be the beautiful thing that it is, they've got to do this course. I think it's incredible opportunity. I really do.
Thank you, and I'm praying that it helps some folks, along with the IQ 9 assessment, which I think also. If you haven't taken it, you can go to my website, ianmorgancron.com. You could take the IQ 9, get your number, and then go to the course and find that number's 90 minutes.
Yep.
Right.
I think that's
read
smart.
up on your report and then go take the thing. So this has been great.
Hey, well, that's nice because I always love hanging out with you. So we got to get our next cigar session on the books.
Well, next week we will be in Seaside. I know you love Seaside.
I do, man. I love me some Seaside.
So we're going next week to take a little week off after a long run. And please, nobody try and rob my house because I actually have a large college student here and 2 dogs, so you may not want to do that. And that means you, Ken. Actually, I was actually directing that toward you.
Right.
We're going to be together again soon when I get back. Anthony, I love you.
Love you, Ian.
Anthony, I love you as well.
Hey, love you, Ken. And I'm in on that next smoke.
Oh, good. Yes. Right. There's always room for one more.
All right.
Hey, Typology Tribe, don't forget the words of the great Oscar Wilde. Be yourself. Everybody else is already taken. Until next time.